Are you aspiring to ace the UPSC CSE? Commence your transformational journey with the Vision IAS Delhi GS Foundation Course 2025. Empower your exam preparation through cutting-edge educational technology and personalized learning experiences with tech-enabled learning. Dive into concepts with animations, videos, and interactive tools designed for maximum understanding and retention. Personalized student portal. Access live classes, recorded sessions, and extensive academic resources, all at your fingertips, anytime, anywhere. Enroll now and step closer to accomplishing your IAS dream. With the Vision IAS Delhi GS Foundation Course 2025, batches starting from 31st August, 5 p.m., 17th September, 9 a.m., 24th September, 1 p.m., 30th September, 5 p.m.
Please settle down. Good afternoon, everyone. So, how many of you attempted the mains? Anyone? So, I can see some old faces also. Nice to see you again. So, we are going to tackle the GS1. Multiple teachers are going to come. I'm going to begin with focus on modern and world history. So this is like year-wise subject weightage in UPSC GS Paper-1. So art and culture, these are the number of questions which have come, right? So 2020, 21, 22, 23, 24. So you see that in the art and culture, the number of questions they have stayed like constant at around 3 broadly, right? In MIH, roughly the questions 2 to 3 questions, so they're also a constant thing, it is there. In post-independence India, the weightage is relatively less. For example, in 2021, 1 question was asked. 2022, 1 question was asked. No questions have been asked in 2023 and 2024, right? But always remember, UPSC has an act for surprising everyone. For example, this time 1.5 question was asked from modern history and 1.5 question was asked from world history, because 1 question was a merger of modern and world history, whereby they asked that what was the impact of something which happened in world history, that is industrial revolution, on India, right? That is the cottage industry and handicraft sector, right? So this time world history in that sense has got comparatively on the base relatively better, but broadly 1 question each from world history, that is the trend. Geography and society, they dominate. There is sudden surge, 2 additional questions are there in society, and geography and society, therefore they remain relatively more important, right? But you cannot neglect other subjects also. The reason is that those who are good candidates, everyone knows that more questions are being asked from geography and society, so therefore most of the candidates, they will over prepare geography and society. So therefore if you are a good candidate, most probably it will be very, very tough to beat the competition, because everyone knows that these are the areas from where more questions come, right? Number of seats are relatively less, right? So these many candidates, good candidates, will focus definitely on geography and society, right? Now good candidates will be at par with each other by focusing on geography and society, right? Now if you have to beat the other person, right? If Usain Bolt has to beat the other person by 0.01 second or something, so therefore there are the other subjects which are relatively thought of being less importance, right? They will come into picture. For example, let's say no question has been asked from post independence India and students think कि अच्छा इसको neglect ही रखते हैं, Okay, I'm not saying that over prepare. Obviously, you'll over prepare these subjects more. But if you neglect post-independence India, and if one question is asked, right, or by chance, let's say 2 questions are asked, then you'll be out of the race. And the person who did not neglect and got equal marks in geography and society will beat you. Right? That's why in UPSC you should always prepare the syllabus. The weird thing is that the subjects from which more questions are asked are important, but the subjects from which less questions are asked, they are the game changers, they are the deciders. That's how it is, because the number of seats are ultimately less ना, ठीक है ना, तो आप कैसे beat करोगे? So that's the whole point, right? So that's the distribution which is there. The second component is this. So UPSC mains, if we talk about only this year's exam, so subject wise mark weightage, again you see society at top, right? So therefore sociology optional and PSIR, they are doing good, they are the flavors. So fine, society 100 marks, geography 75 marks, right? So from this perspective, maybe you can decide to choose optional also, right? But you never know when UPSC will crack down, right? So you should always be ready for that. But yes, right now PSIR, anthropology, sociology, they are the ones, so society में भी उसका फायदा आपको GS में भी देखेगा. And similarly, if you go for geography as an optional, तो fine. Statistically, you can go for this, but obviously you choose that optional where you have interest, right? Because ultimately without interest you will not be able to fare better. World history this time 15 marks and modern history 25 marks, so total 40 marks are here and 35 marks are there in the art and culture, right? So therefore broadly this is how the distribution is, right? And great influence was there of the current affairs, right? My perspective is always slightly different. I like movies, so I feel that when in art and culture a lot of questions are asked about Pandyas and Cholas, so therefore I feel that is Ponniyin Selvan 1 and Ponniyin Selvan 2 effect is continuing. Right, so therefore that movie became, well, there's a logic also. Actually my perspective changed. For example, when I my hobby was Hindi Bollywood songs, so I read a book on it, so therefore my perspective changed about popular culture. Nation is always important, people are always important, so therefore things which become very very super hit among the people, that means that tapped into the nerves of the people, right? So fine, from that perspective also, like in Ponniyin Selvan, Ponniyin Selvan 2, these movies they became famous, so therefore you see that one can associate. हाँ, कोई दूसरा ये भी कह सकता है that well usually UPSC also focuses on these elements, but yeah, let us make UPSC preparation more interesting by connecting it with movies, right? For example, this time a question came demographic winter, which was not there in the current affairs, right? I tried to Google search, only in Financial Times or only one article was there, right? Otherwise most of the articles they were from European newspapers. Obviously a UPSC candidate will not be studying European newspapers. Yeah, India वाले तो पूरे हो नहीं पाते. How are you going to study the European newspapers, right? So, well, we were discussing in a group that okay, these questions came, right? I was able to guess that okay, this is demographic winter, right? So other colleagues they were saying that this is like a bouncer question because it does not come in the current affairs, in the Indian Express or in the Hindu. Then I thought, why I was able to guess it? Then I realized, oh, because winter is coming. Right? So because I'm a fan of Game of Thrones, right? So their winter is coming, right? Winter means like death there. So demographic winter, demographic death, right? So okay, that is connected with what you call as decreasing population. So I was able to guess. So that's in the fun mode. But yes, UPSC always comes up with bouncers. My domain here is modern history and world history. Right, so therefore I thought that let us put in some extra hard work and try to see that if I had been a student, then how I should have approached this these previous year questions or these year's question, and so as to give a sample to the student how to analyze the PYQs, right, or how to make short notes out of the PYQs, right. So therefore, for example, right, this is like the analysis part, right. If I think about modern history. So in 2019 to 2024, right? These are like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 years of trend, right? So chronologically ordered, 1857 यहाँ पे तो गांधी जी यहाँ पे ठीक है उस तरीके से. So in 2019 and transfer of power 1940s यहाँ पे. तो 2019 में you saw a very vast variety, right? They are asking about 1857 revolts also, right? I'm not discussing the exact question. Right, that can also be opened up, but I'm telling you the topics from which or themes from which they talked, they picked up questions. So see, from 1857 till 1940s, in 2019, 1857 revolt, social reforms, 1920 participation in the Indian national movement, that how different segments they joined the Indian national movement, workers, women, peasants, etc. And transfer of power, was complicated by the British. That question was there in right? So therefore, such a vast variety was covered in 2019. Then 2020, so 1850s, that is, this thing, social reforms, sort of aur aa gaya hai, to extremist. So they talked about impact of Curzonian administration. That is basically they are talking about the impact of Swadeshi movement and some additional things which were done by Curzon. And second question was regarding in 1920 onwards, again participation. So as in the class we discussed that nation is supreme. People are most important for us. And therefore, whenever you discuss any movement, civil disobedience movement, non-cooperation movement, when these points are mentioned that women participated for the first time in the CDM. So why that sentence is important? Because women is like 50% of the nation. And if that 50% of the nation is coming out on the streets to participate, to demand Swaraj, so therefore that is what you call as nation in the making. Right? So therefore nation is important, its participation is important, and from that perspective 1920 plus participation, and again ideology, different ideological strands, right? In 2021 they again talked about social reforms after a gap of 1 year, okay, and then they talked about moderates contribution, that is if this domain it is of extremists and moderates, then moderates contribution, and then they talked about methods, right, movements and the methods which are followed in those movements, right? So this can be a theme. So they talked about specifically they talked about that, tell us about the constructive work programs which were adopted by Mahatma Gandhi non-cooperation movement and civil disobedience movement, right? So they are focusing on the method. So we getting to know as a student that okay, methods are important, movements are important, okay. Then they did not ask about any movement, right? Here they are in a way indirectly asking about a movement. Here they are asking only about a method which was deployed in 2 movements. That's why I say we always study vertically, but UPSC always asks question horizontally. Right, so they say that we have picked up a method. Now you do control F and how it was done in non-cooperation movement, how it was done in civil disobedience movement. Okay. Then in 2022, they bombed, they bouncer aa gaya, right? So never ever they have asked questions in mains in pre-1857 era, right? But then they asked wars by the East India Company, that how despite multiple Indian armies, East India Company was able to do conquest in India. And second, EIC rule. That is how bad was the East India Company rule that there were famines throughout your different time periods of the British era, right? So therefore how the EIC captured power and how then they behaved, that becomes a theme, right? Actually a book came around 2019, its name was Anarchy, right? That is Rise of East India Company to Power, and that is written by William Dalrympe, who is the head of Jaipur Literary Festival, one of the famous festivals, right? So therefore I was waiting as a student of history that when will UPSC ask about conquest by East India Company, and ultimately it was a gap of 3-4 years that this question was asked. So that's how UPSC behaves, right? So Shashi Tharoor and others going on to the social media platform and other platforms talking about how East India Company looted India, right? So therefore there was a narrative around this point, and ultimately that narrative got converted into a question, but not immediately, but after a gap, because UPSC is in the domain of surprising everyone, right? So for example, when they asked about moderates here Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose statue was being unveiled, and UPSC will ask about moderates. Totally opposite. So therefore anyone who wants like short guess UPSC, right, ऐसा shortcut तो चलेगा नहीं, but हाँ एक broad themes we should be aware of, and we should always prepare the themes. Otherwise UPSC will always kind of surprise you. If a question comes based on the current affairs, people will say, see, it came in current affairs. And if a question does not come and comes opposite of that, people will say, see, UPSC surprises, right? So everything is justified, right? ऐसा नहीं होता है, but yes, we have seen a pattern that things which become a narrative at times, they manifest themselves, not immediately, but they have to be kept in mind, throughout your UPSC journey of 2 years, 3 years, whatever, right? And then in 2023, again, tribal revolts. So rule of the East India Company was bad. So tribals, they also suffered. So therefore impact on the people, right? So people focus is there. Movement focus is there, right? Leader focus. So in 2023, they merged ethics, and I consider Rabindranath Tagore ji as part of ethics. Why? Because he did not contribute to any social reforms as such. He was a man of knowledge. He was a man of art and culture. He was a man of philosophy. That there should not be any borders and there should be this thing, right? His contribution to the Indian national movement was also not there as such. He only, did some constructive work activity in Shantiniketan Ashram during the Swadeshi movement, plus he gave Amar Sonar Bangla, which later on went on to become national anthem of Bangladesh. But otherwise, he has not led any movements, right? So from that perspective, I do not consider him as like the core part of what you call as the modern history, because their primary focus is on the movements, on the people's aspect and social reforms. I consider contemporary art and culture maybe, or philosophy wise, ethics wise, ethics. But they merge. UPSC is into the business of merging two subjects and creating a question. So therefore, compare ideas of big people, right? Mahatma Gandhi and Tagore. Okay. Then in 2024, they are asking about Quit India movement, right? One question which came on Quit India movement purely from modern history. The third question was a merger of modern and world history, right? So you notice there was a gap of 2 years, and then they again asked about a movement, proper movement, right? So movements are important. That is what I learned as a student of UPSC. Overall, what are the themes on which UPSC ever asked question? A, conquest by the East India Company. B, rule of the East India Company, right? That is the land revenue systems or other things, right? Consequences of those rules, be it tribal revolts or be it anything. Response by the Indians. Response by the Indians was initially in the form of social religious reforms that Britishers, they criticized our civilization. So therefore, we tried to say that no, we are not a degraded civilization, we can reform. So people like Raja Ram Mohan Roy began their reforms in 1800s. Peasant and tribal revolts, they also responded. Moderates and extremists, they also gave a response. Pada poster Nikolai Mahatma Gandhi also gave a response. Then movements, right? Swadeshi movement and your Home Rule League movements, मतलब ऐसा movements वाला topics आ जाता है. And then questions related to state, territory, constitutional developments, that is Government of India Acts and all, right? That becomes a theme. They can always ask a question. And the last theme, which they have not asked any question, and it is my gut feeling that sooner or later they're going to again, come out with a bouncer, and they can ask that what was the contribution of the revolutionaries to the Indian national movement. A very simple question, but which has not been asked, since some decent amount of time. But yes, these are the broad themes which are there, and one should not neglect any of the theme. Last direct question which came on Quit India movement was in 2002, right? And that question was, what was the attitude of different political parties towards the Quit India movement, right? So that's why, movements ko prepare karo, okay? You will become lucky. These are the themes. Themes are much more important. Fine, at times we can develop some pattern, but yes, broadly themes are the ones which are more important, right? If I similarly talk about, let's say, world history. So in 2019, world history question was on impact of American and French Revolution on the world. That how the foundations of modern society were laid by American and French Revolution. Then American and French Revolution, Napoleon, etc. Then in 2020, they did not ask anything. In 2021, interwar years. That is between World War I and World War II, what happened? Please tell us about that. 2022, they did not ask anything. 2023, again, one question on Industrial Revolution. That what was the impact on railways in different countries. Okay. And then 2024, now two questions are there. That is A, Industrial Revolution, and what was its impact on India. So it's like a merger of modern and world history, right? World War I, reasons. The second question was on reasons of the World War I, right? So therefore, this is how it is. Last time, the question was asked on responsibility or reasons for World War I was in 2015. They asked that, please tell us how far you agree that Germany was responsible for the two world wars. ये 2015 में पूछा था. And then in 2015, they also asked why Industrial Revolution happened first in England and what was the impact on the British people, and compare with life in India today, right? So again, basically the theme was Industrial Revolution. And in 2017, they asked, examine how decline in artisan industry hurt rural economy of India, right? So therefore, these are the two connecting questions which are related to the question which came in 2024. So there is a time gap of 8 years, 9 years, right? So therefore, that is how it is. So ultimately, multiple themes are there and they keep on getting repeated. No question has been asked so far on the Cold War, but that will be again a very good bouncer, right? Very few people will be able to tackle it. Okay. Now let us begin with the modern history question. That is, what were the events that led to the Quit India movement, right? Point out the results, right? 150 words and 10 marks. Whenever you prepare any topic, always prepare that topic simply in the format, any event happened, why it happened, how it happened, consequences. So this question is coming from the why part of it and from the consequences. Two questions are there, why and consequence, right? And usually UPSC asks, these very simple things UPSC asks, right? So clarity should be there. Now, if I think about it, right? So if I was you and I was making the short notes, right? So Quit India movement, reasons, and I have to have extra focus on the events, because what were the events That means conceptual part is there, but please provide me some factual information about the name of the events in which those concepts are playing out. Okay. So, well, some reasons for the Quit India movement were rooted in the modern history and some reasons were rooted in the world history, right? So, for example, in the world history, World War II has begun in 1939. And then in modern history, there was a debate between Indian Nationalist Congress and the British with respect to what should be the war aims for India. War aims basically means that why Indians should sacrifice their lives fighting in the World War I. What is there for us? So Indian National Congress basically wanted the Britishers to give it in writing that after victory in the World War I, we will give you Swaraj or Poon Swaraj or something like this. But the Britishers, they were not ready to make any such promise, and therefore the debate was going on relating to transfer of power. Here transfer of power means transfer of executive power. That is, there should be an Indian Prime Minister and all the ministers, they should be Indians. Viceroy should become a powerless president and there should be India-like system, the Indians in power. Right? So therefore World War II began and this debate is taking place. This debate manifested itself in the form of, in 1939, Indian National Congress gave demands. Right? So what were these demands? ऐसा ही थोड़ा सा रिवाइज भी कर लेते हैं थोड़ा सा रिवाइज वर्बली जल्दी से. तो डिमांड्स वर एक तो नेताजी सुभाष चंद्र बोस थे. राइट, ही सेड दैट लोहा गर्म है मार दो थोड़ा. Right, that is, the Britishers are weak at this point of time. Most of the British Indian army is not in India, it is fighting in Europe, right, and other parts of the world. So therefore, if we start 1857 like revolt at this particular point of time, or we start any kind of civil disobedience movement at this point of time, the chances of success will be very, very high because the army is not available to the British to repress the movements, right? But on the other hand was Mahatma Gandhi, who said that we should give unconditional support to the British in the war effort, right? One reason was ethics. That is, you should not make use of the weakness of the enemy, right? So therefore, one is ethical principle, but second was what you call as practical nationalistic principles, right? And the practical nationalistic principle is very, very important here. And that was history. If we take a look at the history, then what happened after the World War I? Those powers which were victorious, they took over the colonies of the losing powers. If I apply that analogy, and if Japan is victorious, so India will become a colony of Japan. Japan was fascist dictatorship. When Japan does not give any kind of democracy to its own people, तो तेरा चेहरा क्या इतना प्यारा है? Why they will give any kind of democracy to Indians? Right? The Indian Councils Act of 1909 had brought limited self-government. The Government of India Act 1919 had brought diarchy. That is partially responsible government in the provinces. The Government of India Act 1935 had brought provincial autonomy. That means in a way we have got Swaraj at the province level. Right? At least that much we had achieved. And all of the progress of the Indian national movement will be lost. All these sacrifices will be lost if Japan is able to take over India. That is, if what was done in the World War I is repeated. Right? And fascist powers or empire building powers, of course, they would have converted India into a colony. Right? Well, that's the view of Mahatma Gandhi. Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose has another view. Right? I'm talking about Gandhiji's view at this point of time. So therefore, for us, what is in the national interest? British victory or Japanese victory? British victory. Right? And that's why Mahatma Gandhi, in the national interest, said that unconditional support should be given to the British in the World War I. Otherwise, if Japan is victorious, right, then there will be problems. Right? So therefore, that's a practical reason for Mahatma Gandhi, and ethical reason to all of us know that it will be unethical to make use of the weakness of the enemy. Okay? Jawaharlal Nehru had middle path view, right? So his middle path view was that yes, we should not start any movement. So I disagree with Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose, but we will support the Britishers only as an independent country. First give us independence, and like China is fighting on your side as an independent country, India will also fight on your side as an independent country. Right? So therefore, this is what happened. Congress came out with some middle path. They said, formal independence we'll do later. Asli maal liao abhi. That is, do actual transfer of executive power. है ना? So sovereignty will take care of later. You make a person, Indian person, prime minister, make viceroy powerless, all ministers Indian. That is effective transfer of power you do. Rest things we will take care later. Right? So, and if you do that, then we are ready to support you in the World War I. How will we support you in the World War I? कोई कांग्रेस पीपल थोड़ी विल बी गोइंग विद बजूका, है ना, इन द वर्ल्ड वॉर वन. बेसिकली आस्किंग द इंडियंस, प्लीज ज्वाइन द वर्ल्ड वॉर वन. Asking the Indian youth to join the World War I, right? Asking the Indian taxpayers to pay taxes on time, because money is required by any state to fight the war. No strikes should be done by the workers. Koi no revenue campaign should not. Law and order, please don't disturb. INC is leader of the people. If such directions are given to the people, people will follow, and therefore this is how Britishers will be able to fight with full concentration in the World War I, right? So therefore that was kind of like INC demands. But those demands, they were not respected, right? So therefore, Indian National Congress ministries, which were set up in 1937 under the Government of India Act 1935 in the provinces, they resigned. They resigned only from the ministries. They did not resign as MLA, right? So it is kind of like a non-cooperation, boycott of ministership, right? After that, Linlithgow 3643 1936-43, he panicked and he came out with August offer, right? And he said, okay, we'll give you Dominion status after war, and we'll set up a constituent assembly which will have mainly Indians, and you will draft your own constitution. Simon Commission से इसीलिए खफात थे ना तुम, that there was no Indian in the Simon Commission 1927. ठीक है, we'll set up a constituent assembly after war where majority of the members will be Indians. You will draft a constitution with Dominion status for India, right? This is what we are saying. ठीक है ना, ऐसा. So August offer came, but this August offer failed. Why? Because our demand was Purna Swaraj, not Dominion status. And second, this August offer, it also laid kind of like foundation of what, मतलब मैं अभी उसको highlight नहीं करना चाह रहा, आंसर कैसे ड्राफ्ट करना है, मैं टॉपिक्स थोड़ी पढ़ा रहा हूँ. माई फोकस इज कि आपको आंसर कैसे ड्राफ्ट करना है, ठीक है ना. तो अभी वो जो डिटेल है वो मैं बाद में दूंगा. अभी आप अपने आंसर में इनको एक समरी पॉइंट्स यू विल बी राइटिंग डाउन. दीज आर द इवेंट्स, राइट. So August offer failed. It failed to satisfy the Indian leaders, as simple as that. And you can then highlight key things because it tried to lay foundation of partition by giving veto to Muslim League with respect to framing of constitution. ऐसा एक reason you can say. And it offered only Dominion status while demand of INC was Purna Swaraj since Lahore session 1929. ऐसा एक लाइन में complete कर देंगे, ठीक. Next point, since August offer failed, people are filled with anger because war inflation is taking place. But Mahatma Gandhi does not want to hurt the British critically also. So he come out with a middle path of individual satyagrah, where group level mein people will not do anything. You get up, you go out of the room, and you make a demand for freedom of speech and expression. You make an anti-war speech. You get arrested. Arrest ho gaya? Okay. Now you get up. You go. Individually you will do satyagrah. Not with demand of Swaraj, but with demand of freedom of speech. Why freedom of speech? Because whenever war happens, in our polity we have studied, government can apply emergency. And when an emergency is applied, freedom of speech and other fundamental rights are curbed. Britishers had applied emergency in 1939 through the Defence of India Act 1939. So therefore, this is a form of civil disobedience or non-cooperation. This is a form of civil disobedience because you are breaking a law, right? So you are making an anti-war speech. That's why you will get arrested. Only when you break a law, only then you will get arrested. Khair. In simple line, you can mention this, that the anger among the Indians was rising because of war inflation, and Britishers were not responding positively to the demands of the Indians. As a result, to vent out the people's anger without critically damaging the British war efforts, individual satyagrah in 1940 was started with demand of freedom of speech and expression, which later got converted into Delhi Chalo movement. That is, till the point of time you are not arrested, continue marching to Delhi. एक लाइन में ऐसा खत्म कर सकते हैं इसको, ठीक है. इंडिविजुअल सत्याग्रह. Individual satyagrah. Meanwhile, again we move towards world history. In June 1941, Germany attacked USSR. In December 1941, Japan attacked US, right? And therefore, this is how war is getting escalated. And in the beginning, Japan is getting victorious. So at this point of time, INC again gave certain demands that please do transfer of power and we will support you in the World War II. Okay, but those demands were also rejected. Then Japan invades Burma, now very close to India. So therefore heartbeat of British government is rising. As a result, there is a fear of Japan invading India. As a result, Cripps mission is sent to India. The Cripps mission failed. In one line you can mention the reason, because Cripps laid foundation for or proposed balkanization of India, as those provinces and those princes who did not agree with the constitution framed by the Constituent Assembly after the war, they can exit the union, right? So therefore, if we had accepted Cripps mission, India will not be united. That's why Cripps mission failed. Plus simultaneously there was fear of losing all progress of Indian national movement if the fascist Japan takes over. These two things are happening. Therefore now Mahatma Gandhi began Quit India movement with slogan of do or die. What was the goal? Arouse patriotism among Indians to fight Japanese if they come. Right? Because British forces were losing in Singapore, in Malaya. What if British forces, they lose in India also? Then who will fight the Japs? Indians. It has been 10 years that Indians participated in civil disobedience movement. So therefore, karo ya maro, arouse nationalism among the Indians, so they are ready to fight the Japs if they come. Quit India movement was not for making the British quit India. अंदर की बात है, सच्ची. It was for this purpose. For example, Mahatma Gandhi asked, soldiers, don't resign. Continue fighting for British. Bureaucrats, don't resign, but declare that you are loyal to INC. Gandhiji wanted to find a middle path. He did not want to critically damage the British because he is looking after larger national interest. So best case scenario, Britishers, they defeat the Japs. Second scenario, if they are not able to, then Indians, people, they defeat the Japs. Right? So therefore Gandhiji was anti-fascist and he did not want the Indian national movement progress to be lost. Care. This is how you will highlight the events. And then in one of the paragraphs, you can mention that however, apart from these events, there was a simultaneous progress towards partition. Right? So therefore, events wise, events which led to Quit India movement. How? For example, August offer, it gave veto to Muslim League with respect to framing of constitution. Right? So therefore, if the Article 1 is proposed as there shall be a union of India, then Muslim League will have veto power. It will not allow that article to be in our constitution. Why? Because it wants Pakistan. Right? So therefore it lays the foundation of partition. And then Cripps mission, potential balkanization of India, as gave power to reject the constitution and come out of the union. Right? So therefore these two events are taking place with respect to progress towards partition before Quit India movement. And these are the events which took place before the Quit India movement. And the question was, please tell the events which happened in the run up to the Quit India movement or which led to the Quit India movement. Right? So therefore मैं ऐसे अपने notes बनाऊंगा, short notes, right? And answer भी इसी को देख के लिखा जा सकता है. ठीक है. Second question was, point out the results. Right? So one goal was to arouse nationalism. So yes, aroused patriotism. Second, there was a mass movement phase of 6 weeks and after that there was underground activity. With respect to participation, there was low participation of the Muslims and the working class because Muslim League and Communist Party of India, they asked their supporters to not support the Quit India movement. Right? First time Zamindars participated. First time people of the princely states participated. Right? So therefore that is the result. And therefore they laid the foundation of a united India. Right? They started a project which was completed by Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel. Because their demand was not just Britishers quit India, but there also should be a united India. Then you can mention next point of the result. Underground activity was led by, so these are the name of the leaders, right? Jayaprakash Narayan, JP, RP Goenka, Achyut Patwardhan, Sucheta Kriplani, Ram Manohar Lohia, Aruna Asaf Ali, Biju Patnaik, Chotu Bhai Puranik, Usha Mehta, who started Congress Radio, right? So one line can be on the leaders. Brutal repression by the British, like aircrafts were also used to fire upon the people, right? One key highlight was against this brutal repression, Mahatma Gandhi started a fast unto death from Aga Khan Palace in 1943. During the underground activity phase, parallel governments were formed in Balia, in Midnapur, right? That is Jatiya Sarkar, and in Satara, right? So these points also you can mention that these are what the results. And conclusion wise, what can be the conclusion of this? Conclusion is this, that after Quit India movement 1942-45, INA agitations 1945-46. These are the actions which are done by we the civilians. Plus INA 1942-45, naval mutiny February 1946. These are the actions which are taken by revolutionaries or sepoys. Right? This is very similar to 1857 revolt. Civil rebellion, sepoy mutiny. Okay? So after these two events, these two actions by two segments of the society, that is those with guns and those without guns, the Britishers, plus world history combined, 3 decades, 3 big negative events. World War I, 1914-19, Great Depression 1929, World War II 1939-45. So चीजें कब start हुई? 1914. कब खत्म हो रही है? 1944. 44 minus 14, 3 decades, 3 big negative economic events. Britishers, they do not have the capacity now to suppress the Indian nationalism. When these 3 things they combine, therefore British realized that they cannot rule India anymore, and this is how Quit India movement was one of the important factor in independence of India. But along with some world history events and along with some gun events. Right? So these are the results of Quit India movement and events of Quit India movement. एक line में इसका, so basically 150 words है, right? So broadly basically आपको ज़्यादा elaboration का मौका नहीं मिलेगा, right? वो मैंने आपको verbally elaborate किया so that you are able to know that what we are talking about, but you have to summarize each of these points in 1 or 2 lines, right? So therefore that is how it is. Usually a person write down 8 words, right, in 1 line if you do a calculation, right? So 10 words भी समझ लो अगर आप, तो 15 लाइन्स हैं आपके पास, 15-17 लाइन्स हैं. कितने पॉइंट्स लिखे हमने? 15-17 लाइन्स हैं, तो देख लो इसके अंदर कितने हैं. ठीक, एक लाइन तो इंट्रोडक्शन का आ जाएगी. ठीक है, इंट्रोडक्शन कैन बी a summary of this, that Quit India movement 1942 was the first movement where the people of whole of India participated. Fine, that can also be an introduction. एक, ये कितने पॉइंट्स हैं? 12 पॉइंट्स तो यही हो गए. ठीक है, 2 पॉइंट्स 14. ठीक है, 14 और 3-4 पॉइंट्स ये हो गए. ठीक है ना, 20 पॉइंट्स हैं. ठीक है ना, तो यू विल गेट एट मैक्स व्हाट यू कॉल एज 1 लाइन. तो आपका बड़ी मुश्किल से, बड़ी कठिनाई से आपका 150 वर्ड्स में होगा. ठीक है, सो देयरफॉर that's why you, if you see the toppers copies, you will see, अरे सर तो एक लाइन में लिखा हुआ है, मल्टीपल पॉइंट्स लिखे हुए हैं. But the whole point is that their thought process is very deep. On the surface, when you see the topper copies, you see only simple points, but the thought process is deep, right? So the way we discuss the thought process also here, and we discuss the points also here, right? So therefore that's how this question it can be answered.
Completing the syllabus without proper knowledge of current affairs will not take you far in the UPSC Civil Services examination. Regulate and transform your preparation with complete coverage of news of relevance. Get a concrete hold of current affairs for UPSC CSE with Vision IS Monthly Current Affairs Revision Program starting from 20th September at 5 p.m. The program is your guide to get comprehensive news on one platform sourced through relevant resources such as The Hindu, Indian Express, Economic Times, PIB, Yojana and others. Enroll for complete coverage of current affairs including Indian polity and constitution, economy, international relations, and more. Comprehensive assessment of preparation through MCQs and mains-oriented questions. Expert support through personalized mentoring and online doubt resolution.
The next question is related to this thing. How far is it correct to say that the First World War was fought essentially for preservation of balance of power? So 250 words and 15 marks. ठीक है ना? पानी पिएगा? पिले पिले. ठीक. So balance of power. हाँ? संतुलन बना रहना चाहिए अखंडा. So मतलब if you watch movie, मतलब आपको पढ़ाई ऐसा करना चाहिए that even if you are watching movies etc उसमें UPSC चल रहा है, क्या संतुलन बनाना चाहिए, क्या रुक जा balance of power, मिर्जापुर पहुंच, balance of power है ना. So what is balance of power? You begin with defining balance of power. Balance of power is very very simple. It is a mechanism to maintain your power status. It has two components. First component is very simple. If I am maintaining balance of power here, that no, and you are multiple powers, right, who are junior to me. Not any one of you should become so powerful that one day you are able to challenge me. That is point number one. So I'm maintaining a balance of power. And second component is each of you should be roughly equal to each other in power status. Right? And you should not be united. Right? If you are not united, that means you fear each other, you are rivals of each other, and you are equal to each other. He will never have a sense of confidence to attack this country and to attack this country. Why? Because he is not that powerful, he is not that big. All of you are equal to each other. Right? So I am Britain, this is Europe. Europe should be divided into roughly multiple and equal parts who should not be united. That is policy of divide and rule and ensuring that no one power rises. Right? So that is balance of power. Balance of power implies superior power ensures that no power is strong enough to challenge it, plus target region where I'm maintaining my balance of power. Like today, US wants to maintain balance of power in the whole world. Right? That's why US will not be very happy if India is rising. Santulan bana rehna chahiye. India should be neither too weak that cannot challenge China, nor should be so powerful that now instead of China, the US is looking at it like a way. है ना ऐसा. That's why I say, और अभी वापस से वैसा हो रहा है. अब मैं थोड़ा सा बह रहा हूँ, बता रहा हूँ. मैं तो कब से कह रहा हूँ कि if Russia, China, India, if these three powers they come together, big problem for US. And to prevent that, US will do anything. Right? संतुलन बना रहना चाहिए. ठीक. Target region is summation of divided and equal powers. That is unity नहीं होना चाहिए and roughly equal powers. So rise of one power is checked by other powers. Right? So if India and China, they are enemies of each other and roughly equal in power status, right? So US will help India rise equal to China. For example, equally power status but not united. तो ऐसा रहेगा तो China will always be checked and India will also be checked. मतलब ठीक है, that's the concept of balance of power. So you define it like this in simple language. Okay. Now the question is what? Why World War I happened? How far do you agree that it is for balance of power? See, if the World War I was fought for balance of power, then the blame is on who? The superpower. That is Britain is responsible for the World War I. Okay. And if World War I was not fought for balance of power, that means there are other reasons also of the World War I. Then blame is on other factors and Germany. The question is asking weightage. The question is asking us weightage. Bhai, if both of them were reasons, how far the first reason was responsible? तो आप हमें बताइए कौन सा चीज ज्यादा महत्वपूर्ण था. ठीक, that is the key issue. That student will be getting marks who is able to identify that which one was more responsible. Okay, आंसर क्या है? Well, if you study world history, which you do not, so therefore less blame is there on Britain and more is there on other factors. Right? More is there on other factors. Okay? Proof bhi chahiye hota hai. So if you study world history, which you do not, okay, so you'll come to know that in the Second Balkan War, which happened in 1913, Britain did not enter. Second Balkan War, your Bulgaria versus Montenegro, Serbia, Turkey, right? These kind of countries was there. Britain did not act against, अब मैं बोलूँगा आपको समझ में नहीं आएगा, but Britain did not support Serbia, right, against Bulgaria. ठीक है? So Germany thought that Britain does not want to fight. And why Britain did not enter the war? Because Britain did not want escalation of this small war into a bigger war. So we have a proof that Britain may would have wanted to maintain balance of power, but not at cost of a big war. तो बिग वॉर को प्रिवेंट करने का कोशिश किया ब्रिटेन ने. सेकेंड पॉइंट इज देयर वाज दिस बॉस्नियन क्राइसिस विच टुक प्लेस इन 1908. सो बॉस्निया वाज अ स्लैव पॉपुलेटेड टेरिटरी विच वाज डिजायर्ड बाय सर्बिया फॉर क्रिएटिंग वन कंट्री फॉर स्लैव्स with the name Yugoslavia. So ideally Bosnia should come from Ottoman Empire to Serbia so that they are able to achieve a country for Slav people. But instead of doing that, the Austria-Hungary Empire took over Bosnia, right? And then Serbia got angry, so Serbia called Russia, right? Russia was like elder brother of Serbia. So Russia called a conference. But Britain and France, they did not attend that conference. Why? Because Britain felt that if we will come to support of Serbia, then Germany भरा बैठा है, उसको मौका चाहिए that somehow, war takes place. We don't want war. So they did not attend this conference to prevent escalation of conflict. So therefore, these are two reasons through which we come to know that Britain का इंटेंट होगा बैलेंस ऑफ पावर का, बट नॉट एट द कॉस्ट ऑफ अ वर्ल्ड वॉर. ऐसे हमको प्रूफ मिलते हैं दैट दे ट्राई टू अवॉइड वॉर. ठीक. व्हाट इज द कोर ऑफ द क्वेश्चन? कोर ऑफ द क्वेश्चन इज रीजन फॉर द वर्ल्ड वॉर वन. One aspect is balance of power, second aspect is other factors. So fine, student with this introduction, right, can now continue elaborating the balance of power, right? What is the meaning of balance of power? Contained rise of Germany. The key theme of this is that Britain wanted to hurt or contain rise of Germany so that balance of power is maintained, right? So therefore, which escalated conflicts, which resulted in World War II or World War I, right? So how it had happened? So in first point you can mention that from 1890s there was encirclement of Germany by Britain, France and Russia. France and Russia, they signed a secret military pact against Germany in 1894. That is, if France is attacked by Germany, Russia will come to help of France. If Russia is attacked by Germany, France will come to help of Russia. In 1904, Britain and France, they resolved their colonial disputes and they entered into a treaty of friendship. So Germany is feeling that my southwestern neighbor and my northwestern neighbor are now friends. And my southwestern neighbor and my eastern neighbor are friends since 1894. Then Britain and Russia, they also resolved their colonial disputes over Tibet, India, Afghanistan, Iran by signing an agreement in 1907 called Britain-Russia Agreement, and therefore the encirclement of Germany is complete. The power to the east, the power to the southwest, and the power to the northwest, they have come together in form of different alliances. So therefore Germany is feeling threatened that they want to contain me, they want to threaten me. Then certain French actions from 1900 to 1904. Morocco in northwest Africa, which is at the mouth of Mediterranean Sea, right, and it looks at Atlantic Ocean, right? So therefore it is at the entry point of an important sea lane of communication. Morocco was important for Germany because Germany does not share any border with Mediterranean Sea. So therefore Germany has to come from the top, enter into the Mediterranean Sea via this Morocco area, and then use Suez Canal, come to Arabian Sea. That's how the world trade will take place. So therefore, now it was desired, Morocco was desired by Germans as well as French. So France resolved its disputes with Italy, whereby Italy accepted that Morocco should go to France, and France accepted that Italy can colonize Libya if it wants to. Otherwise, Libya was a disputed area between France and Italy. France and Spain both wanted Morocco because Spain के just नीचे ही Morocco है और France के भी नीचे थोड़ा सा left में Morocco है. So France and Spain in 1904 they came to an agreement by partitioning Morocco into French Morocco and Spanish Morocco. So Spain is also friend of France now. France and Britain, they had disputes over Egypt and Sudan. Egypt and Sudan, they are in northeast part of Africa. Suez Canal, Arabian Sea. So they decided, France said, की चाहिए. Britain कहता, स्वीटी तेरा प्यार नहीं, वो Egypt और Sudan चाहिए. So France said that, okay, Egypt and Sudan are yours, but whenever any dispute takes place on Morocco, you please support me. Britain ने कहा, no problem. So therefore, this is how France has brought all the other important powers on its side with respect to Morocco. Then in 1906, Moroccan crisis took place, whereby all of these things are taking place. So Germany called a conference. आपको ये सब exam में लिखने की जरूरत नहीं है. You can simply write down that Moroccan crisis and Agadir crisis further escalated the conflict. But मैं आपको just verbally बता रहा हूँ. So when all of these things are being done by France, so Germans they called a conference. All the people they sided with France. Germany therefore felt humiliated. But a promise was extracted that okay, Morocco will stay independent largely. But then in 1911, France stationed its army also in Morocco. Therefore, an island near Morocco, its name was Agadir. It was taken over by Navy of Germany. Again, a conference took place. All the people again sided with France. Germany, like a small piece of meat is thrown to a dog. So some territory in French Congo was given to Germany, and Germany was told कि चुप रह, निकल. Therefore, Germany was again humiliated. And therefore, by 1911, Germany came to realize that it is only through war that I can achieve my aspirations. And therefore, the desire for maintaining balance of power instigated the conflicts, the rivalries, strengthened the rivalries in Europe, and that is the responsibility of balance of power desire in leading to World War I. ठीक है ना? तो बट आपको ये सब पता होगा तो आप इन पॉइंट्स को पॉइंट पॉइंट फॉर्म में लिखोगे. इतना एलैबोरेशन यू विल नॉट डू जितना मैंने अभी किया. ठीक, मैं इसलिए एलैबोरेशन कर रहा हूँ कि वर्ल्ड हिस्ट्री कम लोग पढ़ते हैं. खैर, अदर फैक्टर्स दे आर ऑल्सो रिस्पॉन्सिबल. 1 2 3 4 5 पॉइंट्स में हो जाएगा. ठीक, फर्स्ट, Germany was responsible. Why it was responsible? Germany was the second biggest economy, second biggest naval power, second biggest military power in Europe after Britain. So it desired that I should have a colonial empire, which is second largest in the world after Britain. But the second largest colonial empire was of France. That resulted in conflicts. That is German territorial ambitions. They resulted in conflict and therefore war. That I'll take the French colonial empire through war. Responsibility of Germans. France-German rivalry is also responsible at the rate Morocco. Plus animosity was there between France and Germany because since 1870, coal-rich area of France called Alsace-Lorraine was with the Germans. A war took place, Franco-Prussian War, Prussia, P with Russia is Germany. Okay, so therefore these were the disputes. That means a dispute. There were some disputes between France and Germans which contributed to World War I. It was not just Britain's desire to maintain balance of power. That is what we are trying to say. Then German Navy threat. Germany Navy was rising like anything. Therefore, it threatened the British colonial empire. After Bismarck was very awesome man. He was like the Chanakya of Germany. But once he was no more in power, once he died or once he was removed from power, after that Germany's foreign policy was very aggressive, which threatened other countries. Right? So therefore their aggressive foreign policy increased anxiety and tensions among the rest. So therefore, that's the responsibility of Germany. Then when the Germans, they began the war by attacking, they wanted to attack Russia, right? Why the hell they attacked France and Belgium? Right? France and Belgium like, मेरे को क्यों मारा? Because Germany assumed that because I am attacking Russia, so because of 1894 alliance, France will definitely attack me. And I do not want to fight war on two fronts. So I will quickly defeat France. But for that, I will come to France via Belgium. Belgium borders were guaranteed by Britain. And therefore, this resulted in entry of Britain into the war. Therefore, got converted into World War. So your Schlieffen plan of defeating France in 6 weeks by attacking France via Belgium is responsible. Germany declared war not just on Russia, which it did in support of Habsburg, but also on France and Belgium. So आपकी responsibility है, other factors, ऐसा बोल सकते हैं. खैर. Then Serbian nationalism. Serbia wanted a country for all Slavs of Balkan Peninsula with the name Yugoslavia. But that will require taking away territory from Austria-Hungary Empire or Habsburg Empire. Right? Therefore, rivalry. So this tension also contributed to the World War. Plus, Germans supported Habsburg Empire or Austria-Hungary Empire. So therefore, responsibility on Germany and responsibility on Serbian nationalism. Russia, it also had issues. Russia desired assurance of access to sea. So therefore wanted strong ally to the west of Straits of Dardanelles. Right? So therefore this is what you call as, ये तो आपको पता ही है. ये क्या है? This is Crimea. This is Black Sea. Right? This particular territory. This is Straits of Dardanelles and this is Mediterranean Sea. I'm not good at drawing, so pardon me. Right? So these are Straits of Dardanelles. This is Turkey, traditional rival of Russia. This is Balkan Peninsula. Here, friend Serbia. Right? So Russia supported Serbia against Austria-Hungary Empire. Russia wanted Yugoslavia, so that there is a strong Serbia, at least on one side of Straits of Dardanelles. So I have access to Mediterranean Sea for my trade. Okay. Desired assurance of access to sea, therefore wanted strong ally on west of Straits of Dardanelles in form of Yugoslavia and Balkan Peninsula. Japan was also participant, right? So it did industrial revolution from 1868, wanted raw materials and export markets because its own geography was very small. So therefore it always had desire of empire building. So any country which has a desire for empire building is also responsible for the World War. And then lastly, colonialism for industrial revolution and nationalism. If you'll have colony, only then you'll be able to have assured supply of cheap raw materials and export markets, right? And everyone is in a race to industrialize ASAP. So therefore, the primary reason for the World War I was basically colonial ambitions, so that you can do industrialization in a faster manner. So that is also there. And plus, nationalism was there. So every country's people wanted to have an empire. For example, Italians, ये आप exam में नहीं लिखो, but Italians, they put the pressure on their government. मेरा empire का है. Why? Desire for great nation. Right? We should be politically great. We should also have an empire. Our economy should be awesome. We should also have colonies. Right? So there was public pressure and public matters. Right? So therefore, ऐसा. And lastly, you can mention that Europe had also divided itself into alliances, which made bilateral wars more likely to get converted into world wars. जैसे कॉलेज में गैंग्स होते हैं, right? You are one gang member, you are another gang member. तूने इसको पीट दिया. After that, what happens? His 10 friends gathered, your 10 friends gathered, and group war began. Why? Because you had friends, you were a gang, Because Europeans had divided themselves into gangs, that is alliance systems, that made it more likely that bilateral wars will get converted into world wars, right? So therefore, this is how we can answer. Last question.
climb the ladder of success for the UPSC Civil Services examination with expert mentoring. Preparation for this important examination can both be daunting and challenging. However, with the support of personalized mentoring, you can embark on your journey with structured guidance. ACE Prelims and Mains 2025 with Lakshya Mentoring Program starting from 26th September. This integrated program offers tailored guidance to deliver personalized mentoring to the students through regular monitoring and feedback. Prepare your strategic roadmap with expert mentoring and evolve your preparation with guidance to cover prelims and mains syllabus, one-on-one mentoring, personal assessment and feedback, Sandhan personalized test, interactive sessions with toppers.
How far was the industrial revolution in England responsible for decline of handicrafts and cottage industry in India? So first introduction, you can simply define IR, that industrial revolution is a change in the process of production, whereby with the help of machines, you do rapid production and mass production of goods. Right? Reasons for decline of handicraft and cottage industry in India. Look at the question. How far? That means the question is not saying that only IR in Britain was responsible for decline of handicraft sector. So whether the student simply mentions blah, 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 right, or divides it like this, that okay, reasons for decline of handicrafts and cottage in India, right? So thought process dekhiye. If open economy was there of India and India is independent, then also industrial revolution abroad will hurt our handicraft sector. Why? We are independent, right? So industrial revolution abroad will still hurt our handicraft sector. Now, if political independence and strong central government, then koi problem nahi hai. Indigenous economy and society adapts or industrializes, right? Like Japan did, like Russia did, like rest of European countries did. Arey bhai, when industrial revolution took place in Britain, these countries were politically independent. So their traditional economies were also threatened. They will also decline. But what they did, they adapted themselves. They changed, right? How? Through technology import, by allowing FDI, reforms in economy, reforms, example, Western education, so that we can also have engineers. So when you are politically independent, then also industrial revolution will hurt your handicraft sector. But you adapt, you change, right? Which was done by others. Second point, but because India was not politically independent, under unified central government, and goal of colonial government was only to loot India, that is serve needs of home, that is Britain. Therefore, this second point, therefore, this did not happen, and what happened was 4, right? Matlab, this part did not happen, and what happened is like next, right? We'll discuss. Plus, British imposed, they misused their sovereign authority over India, and they imposed high duty on the imports from India. Example, if the Indian textiles, which are manufactured by hands, they're traveling into India, they'll encounter 70 to 80% imported duty. Therefore, we will not be able to sell in Britain. Whereas, when British machine manufactured goods, they're coming into India, they're coming duty free. So therefore, they are being sold in India at a big level, right? So therefore, Indian handicrafts exports decline. Domestically also, people are buying machine-made products. So it is basically that because the Britishers, they had political power over India, that is why we could not survive. So what was the impact on the colonies? So fine, ये है कि exploitation increased in name of modernization, railroad network and ports were developed, but with goal of faster extraction of raw materials. ये सब चीजें आप लिख सकते हो, but let me come to this, right? So this is an example of India. So what is the impact on India? So you can begin with that EIC monopoly over Indian trade was ended by the Charter Act of 1813. That means non-EIC British companies, they can export their products into India. Okay. For the Indian handicraft sector, there was loss of markets. Why? Because the British factory textile products, they destroyed external and domestic markets for Indian handicraft sector. External, that is export, and domestic, that is people of India, they are buying machine manufactured products because they are cheaper in price and better in color quality. But abhi time hai. Initially, the British products were cheaper in price but not better in quality. Initially, Indian weavers produced better quality initially, but lost in price competition. And later on, as the machines improved, we lost in quality also. Other industries were also impacted, like iron, glass, paper, melting, shipbuilding, not just textiles. Plus colonialism, that is because we are not independent, that also increased the pace of decline of our sectors. How? Transport sector revolution led to faster capture of Indian markets and faster extraction of raw materials. That is, cheaper and faster transport hurt India. Right? Why? So now steam engine is there. So steam engine say the ship will come to India from Britain, zoop. पहले एक साल लगता था, अब zoop. ठीक? And then port is created by the Britishers. From that port, railroad network is going. So faster extraction of cheap raw materials and dumping of the British products into Indian markets. Suez Canal, it hurt further because it reduced the distance between Arabian Sea and Britain by 4,500 miles. So faster the British ships are able to reach India, therefore greater the entry of British products into India, lesser the Indian people will buy Indian handicrafts. Indian agriculture sector was also overburdened. This one point you can mention. Okay. India became net exporter of raw material, that is, value of raw material exported was greater than the value of finished good imported. Fine. So drain is increasing. Basically, I quickly wanted to come to this. So this you can draw in the exam. Okay. So that is Britain and this is India. And this is how industrial revolution in Britain is leading to drain of wealth from India. Let's say this is Jharkhand, raw materials. This is Indian export market, that is urban population lives here. These people, they built a railroad network from raw material areas to the port and from urban areas to the port. Raw materials, they travel through this railroad, reach this port, where a steam engine fitted ship is waiting. That raw material is taken to the British port. There the railroad network makes these cheap raw material, that means cost of input is less, to the British factories. With the help of machines, they rapidly convert it into finished goods. These finished goods, they travel through railroad network to the port. The ship is waiting with steam engine, Suez Canal, reduce the distance, zoop to the port, and then from here, railroad network to the cities, towns, where rich Indians or relatively rich Indians are living. Right? As a result, our raw materials, we are not given the right price for our raw materials, right? And second, the British factories are able to have cheap raw material. That means cost of production is low. If cost of production is low, MRP will be low. If MRP is low and easily able to reach Indian buyers, so Deepika ji, आइए, जब कम दाम में ये मिले, तो कोई Indian handicrafts क्यों ले? ये ना ले. That ad, it basically tells that people buy better quality at cheaper price, right? So that is being ensured through this railroad infrastructure network. And what was not built, for example, these are Indian factories. Indian factories were not connected to raw materials. Indian factories were not connected to export markets. So conclusion can be that not just the Indian handicraft sector, not just Indian handicraft sector got destroyed because of price and quality competition, but because India was not independent, so we also could not adapt the way Japanese did, the way Russians did, the way rest of Western European did, right? Because we were not independent, right? So conclusion mein, our handicraft sector was destroyed, plus our ability to adapt was also destroyed, and the net result was drain of wealth, which at 2022 prices was $45 trillion as per some accounts. So that can be the conclusion. ठीक है ना? So therefore that's how you discuss this particular question, right? बाकी दिस इज एडिशनल, अगर किसी को लग रहा है कि इट्स 250 वर्ड्स हैं, कम पड़ रहा है, तो मैंने सोचा कि इन जनरल इम्पैक्ट ऑफ IR ऑन ब्रिटेन भी हाईलाइट कर दें, दैट देयर इकोनॉमी गॉट इंडस्ट्रियलाइज्ड, सो 2-3 पॉइंट्स दे आर मेंशन्ड देयर, राइट? सो एनी डाउट्स, एनी क्वेश्चंस व्हिच यू हैव रिगार्डिंग दिस, यू कैन आस्क. क्विट इंडिया मूवमेंट वाले क्वेश्चन में वर्ल्ड पे कितना फोकस करना है? सो द क्वेश्चन वाज वेरी स्ट्रेट फॉरवर्ड. वो क्वेश्चन हमको नहीं बोल रहा है दैट वी हैव टू डू सम एक्स्ट्रा फोकस ऑन दी वर्ल्ड हिस्ट्री इवेंट्स, बट ट्रस्ट मी, मतलब मैं कहूँगा कि 30-40% या 50% फोकस या 30% फोकस करेंगे, क्योंकि रीजन पार्ट्स में आप देखें वर्ल्ड वॉर 2 नहीं होता तो ये सब भी नहीं होता, ठीक है ना? तो आपको इवेंट्स विच लेड, उसमें आप देखेंगे कि रफली अगर मैं पॉइंट वाइज पॉइंट भी कंपैरिजन करूं जहां पे मैं कोई इलेबोरेशन नहीं कर रहा हूं, सो रफली 50% पॉइंट्स आर देयर ऑन द लेफ्ट हैंड साइड एंड रफली 50% पॉइंट्स आर देयर ऑन द राइट हैंड साइड. सो इन द फर्स्ट पार्ट ऑफ द क्वेश्चन, दैट इवेंट्स दैट लेड टू क्विट इंडिया मूवमेंट, 50-50 फोकस, एंड रिजल्ट्स में इंडिया फोकस, ठीक है ना? तो दैट इज हाउ इट इज. एनी अदर क्वेश्चन? कम ऑन आस्क क्वेश्चन, आई लाइक आंसरिंग. ओए होए. हाँ जी.
Sir, the reason behind the First World War I can be designed in such a way that it will be take just 3 points. That first one is the coercive power between new power and the world power, and second one is that ethnic chauvinism, and third one is axis of new power and old power competing that. And the immediate effect is that the assassination of the Archduke Ferdinand.
नहीं, आपका जो फर्स्ट एंड द थर्ड पॉइंट है वो तो सेम हो गया. Alliance system.
Alliance. Third was is alliance, and first one is colonial interest, and that is incoercive too.
Yeah, that is also a valid way of organizing the answer. But एक बात को आपको ध्यान रखना है, whenever the question is asking how far.
Okay.
So broadly, examiner will try to identify, are you giving him a clear answer?
Okay, sir.
That whether it was the reason or it was just a contributory factor. और examiner को वो कैसे पता चलेगा? आपका structure of the answer should be such that clearly under balance of power by using the terminology which is used by the examiner.
The balance of power तो वो तो सर 2 पॉइंट में हो जाएगा, क्योंकि फर्स्ट वन इज द colonial interest इकोनॉमिक वाला, और दूसरा इज
नहीं 2 पॉइंट में काम है, इतना सब बोला मैं. इतना सब पॉइंट्स बताया मैं तुमको बैलेंस ऑफ पावर में, तुम कह रहे हो बस है ना? नहीं देखो ना, बैलेंस ऑफ पावर में देखो ना, ये है ना, ये तो खैर थॉट प्रोसेस था क्या है, बट बैलेंस ऑफ पावर में 1 पॉइंट आंसर आपको प्रूव करना पड़ेगा ना, दैट ब्रिटिशर्स आर ट्राइंग टू मेंटेन बैलेंस ऑफ पावर विच इज क्रिएटिंग प्रेशर ऑन जर्मन्स. तो 1 पॉइंट, 2 पॉइंट, जिसको कहते हैं इधर 3 पॉइंट्स में इलेबोरेट जितना आप करना चाहें उतना यू कैन डू. थर्ड पॉइंट, इसका भी एक पैराग्राफ बन सकता है, मोरक्कन क्राइसिस का. 4th पॉइंट, अगादिर क्राइसिस का. तो मतलब 1 पेज यू कैन फिल एक्चुअली ऑन बैलेंस ऑफ पावर, ठीक? एंड एग्जामिनर को क्लियर दिखना चाहिए कि इफ द स्टूडेंट इज सेइंग दैट बैलेंस ऑफ पावर वाज लेस रिस्पॉन्सिबल, अदर फैक्टर्स वर मोर रिस्पॉन्सिबल, तो एग्जामिनर देखेगा क्या, इधर 5 पॉइंट लिखा एंड इधर देखो 10 पॉइंट लिखा, 1 पॉइंट, 2 पॉइंट, 3 पॉइंट, 4 पॉइंट, 5 पॉइंट, 6 पॉइंट, अदर फैक्टर्स. तो एग्जामिनर को क्लियरली दिखता है कि अच्छा देखो 30% वेटेज द स्टूडेंट इज गिविंग टू बैलेंस ऑफ पावर, यहाँ पे 6 पॉइंट्स है. 70% वेटेज द स्टूडेंट इज सेइंग अदर फैक्टर्स, तो उधर देखो 10 पॉइंट्स है. तो एग्जामिनर को ऐसा दिखेगा, इफ द एग्जामिनर इज एबल टू विजुअली सी दिस, सो देयरफॉर आपको मस्त मार्क्स मिल जाएगा.
थैंक यू सर.
ऐसा डिवीजन मतलब ऐसा पिक्टोरियली भी ऐसा दिखना चाहिए, तो इसलिए पॉइंट्स पे फोकस करो, है ना? राइट, ट्राई टू राइट आंसर इन पॉइंट फॉर्मेट.
थैंक यू सर.
एनी अदर डाउट? ओके, तो ठीक है, तो यू टेक योर 10 minutes break. After that, the next teacher will come and they will discuss आई थिंक आर्ट एंड कल्चर इज द नेक्स्ट, आर्ट एंड कल्चर, है ना? ठीक है, तो चलो टेक केयर, बाय बाय.